We didn't come this far to slow down now. Let 2021 be the year that you light up, that you wake up, that you shake up that special something in your soul, that you reach out and work for that health, that life, that vibrant living you know is possible. Let this be the year. Let this be the day. Let this be the moment that you believe in miracles again. Hey everybody, it is Dr. Devin, and I am so pumped to have one of our very special guests for this year's Big Idea in the house for our podcast episode this Sunday evening. Please welcome Dr. Bradley Campbell.
Hi, Devin. Thanks for having me here.
And
pumped to get to talk a little bit.
Yeah, introduce everybody to your sidekick there.
Yeah, this is Albus Dumbledore. He's an Irish setter, almost 7 years old. Had him since he was a puppy.
And he is going to Wichita.
Oh yeah, he'll be there. As long as they'll let him in, we can actually bring him into the event a little bit, which would be fun.
Heck yeah. He's definitely welcome. And, you know, I think that friends of friends tied us together. So I feel like this is such a good opportunity for me to get to meet you because we all see social profiles, but this will be a deeper dive into who you are, what you're about. So for anybody watching or listening, give them a little like elevator. Who are you? Where are you at in the world? What are you up to?
Yeah. I do a bunch of stuff, but I'm a holistic physician just north of Chicago, Illinois. I run an integrated holistic clinic called Integrated Holistic Healthcare. And I went to school for chiropractic at the Naturopathic Chiropractic School, National University, west of Chicago in Lombard. And also went to acupuncture school and I'm finishing 5 diplomates in nutrition, neurology, homeopathy, applied kinesiology, and internal medicine.
All right, for everybody, can you feel the rattle of that wealth of knowledge and perspective that I'm sure it gives you? What a tapestry. So this makes this question even more complex. So I invite people here because every seminar I feel like I've ever been to, some speaker says, if people knew what we knew, then they would do what we do. And the foundation of that is that we all have a lens we see the world with, right? And there's usually a couple principles or a few key foundations that make up that lens and make all the decisions rooted in that one thing. So I'm really eager with your background and your perspective and the integrative juggle to ask you, what's one thing for you? What's one of those key premises that when it comes to elevating health, pursuing happiness, living a full and vibrant life, what's one thing you wish people knew?
I have a couple answers to this. I'm trying to go back and forth between two, but one big one is that pretty much everything in your life is meant to help you, that life is happening for you, not to you. And that segues into everything's trying to heal you, to help you evolve. The suffering in your life is actually often a lesson for growth, opportunity to evolve, change, adapt. Whether that's to a trauma, whether that's to a health condition that you've been labeled, or whether that's to a germ, whatever it is, it's all helping us evolve our internal ecosystem to the external ecosystem. And that leads me to how I got into natural healthcare in the first place, which is a fairly profound story of, a wounded healer story like many of us have in this profession. But I was 9 years old, running around in school. I was also in gymnastics at the time, and me and my friends were jumping off desks, doing backflips and front flips. And I did a front flip, but I tripped over the corner of a desk. And as I came around doing the full flip, I hit the corner of my head on the corner of a really sharp teacher's desk and blacked out, going down to the nurse, ended up in the hospital, not knowing what happened the last 5 hours. And for 9 months after that major concussion, I lost half my IQ, most of my short-term memory, and my personality was just flat. It was like Dory from Finding Nemo. I went from like a grade ahead in school to grade behind, didn't know what was going on. And of course, concerned parents took me to about 50 different doctors and specialists and best of the best in Chicago, Illinois, at the teaching hospitals all over the place. And I had CAT scans, EEGs, MRIs, sleep studies, psych evals with like multiple doctors repeated over and over again. And no one could figure out what the heck had happened. You just got labeled as like, I guess this is how your kid is now. He's just going to struggle, I guess, and we don't know what's going on. And a moment of suffering my mom had, she was hit in her car by a drunk driver, a semi-driver. So she got whiplash. So she was going to a friend's chiropractor, just a referral. And I was sick from school one day, fighting a germ, right, with a fever that my parents said was meant for me to have the fever, which helped my body build immune system defense, not stopping the fever, but they're like, we're going to bring him to the chiro because maybe the chiro can help. And my mom was like, you know what, instead of treating me, can you look at my son? He's kind of sick today. And he's had this like horrible concussion story for the last 9 months. And his whole life's been like turned upside down. I was getting bullied in school. I didn't feel like myself. I remember like crying at various points, just like coming home, not having friends after like my friends would be like, I don't know what happened, but Brad's just kind of stupid now. So I was at this chiro's office and he was the first person in 9 months that just touched my head. Right. And he did cranial work, which for people who don't know, cranial adjusting or cranial work is in a lot of chiropractic training, in a lot of DO, doctor of osteopathy training, and a lot of non-Western medical training. So the sutures don't fully fuse ever, but they don't harden or stiffen until you're about 20. So I was only 9, and the sutures, like geographic tectonic plates, were pushing inwards and jammed opposite where I hit. They were jammed inwards, putting pressure on my brain, on the memory center of my brain. And you can actually see it on the CT scans that I still have to this day. So he did cranial work and I left an hour later, completely normal. He pulled the sutures apart. I laughed for the first time in 9 months, was myself again. It was like the lights just came right back on. My IQ jumped up higher than before. My like intellect came back. My memory came back. And it was just one of those miracle stories that's, you can't understand the profoundness of one healing moment for one person and the ripple effect that has on your life. And I think the message for other people to take from that is that you never know what one person or one healer or the right key for the right lock at the right moment in time can do for your life. So like every time you go to a doctor, conventional doctor, you may not leave healthier than you came in, but every time you go to a chiropractor or an acupuncturist or a healer, you are going to leave healthier than you came in. And if you go to the right person at the right moment, at the right time, that can be life-changing.
So much to feel on that one. I'm sure every mom listening is like, ugh. My one of my twins, my Noxie, a few years ago fell from 8 feet. And so I mean, it takes me, I mean, when you watch a kid go through a head trauma like that, it's life altering. So feeling that through your parents' eyes and what those 9 months must have been like, right? Like I try to imagine weathering that storm with him had I not known what I knew, and it would have been terrifying. And I would have I don't know, there would have been a lot more fear. And so I'm sure that obviously changed your trajectory as a child. Now take us a little bit more forward of you come into chiropractic at National and now these other disciplines. So is this the seeker in you? What is this journey of integration? Talk about that.
I think I was always the hyper curious kid. In Chinese medicine, they would say the water element, like always learning. The teachers either loved or hated me because I was always the one who would ask as many questions until they wouldn't let me ask any more questions. So I think when I was actually in music before, like I do a lot of stuff. I play saxophone, I ride saxophones, I water ski and competitively and do a whole bunch of stuff. But when I decided to skip out on a master's degree in music performance, which I was going to go and become a saxophone professor and wanted to help injured musicians rather than just like play recitals for 10 or 20 people a year, I wanted to make a bigger impact. And so I switched to chiropractic naturopathic school to help injured musicians. And then little did I know that musicians did not just have physical problems. They had emotional overlays over their physical problems, and they were often taking multiple medications to deal with their pain because they couldn't do surgery and they couldn't take psychotropic meds to affect their performance. So it led me to this rabbit hole of like, if I'm really going to view the whole person, I have to deal with their psychological, emotional health, their relationships. You have to like be like almost like a back bartender therapist for these people. You really have to like view the whole person, their nutritional health, their biochemical health, what their blood sugar is doing when they're performing. And it just led me down this rabbit hole, which my mentor was in applied kinesiology. So I started there. And that's like a huge rabbit hole down into the original forms of chiropractic, the structural, biochemical, and emotional health, and acupuncture and emotional work and NET, neuro-emotional technique, and like all these things that just led me down the spiraling rabbit hole. And I saw the profound nature of chiropractic and applied kinesiology and emotional work and the massive shifts in healing and consciousness that could happen within minutes. And it kind of blew my mind to the point of like, I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe that was possible. Even with my own personal story, it seemed unreal. So what I did was I read about 30 books in placebo medicine, snake oil science. Like I started questioning my whole chiropractic education, like what's real, what's not real. And that's when I went in to do the internal medicine chiropractic internist program in functional medicine and blood work. And like, I wanted to really like prove it to myself and to others that like this was actually happening. People were actually getting better. And I think have like hard results to back up the anecdotal stories and the amazing healing like responses that I was seeing and getting in clinical practice, even as an intern. But you start to see those results on a consistent basis, and they stop becoming miracles. They just start becoming your day-to-day life, which is like the chiropractor who fixed me as a child. You know, that was a profound moment for me, but his response was like, oh yeah, I just see that all the time. Like no big deal. Right. But any conventional doctor would be like, that's impossible. It's not real. Like there's no way that could have happened. That was just a coincidence. It was a correlation, not a causation. Right. Which is fascinating. But I think there's a quote that I really love, which says, miracles are not they're not like a contradiction to nature. Miracles are only a contradiction to what is currently accepted knowledge about nature.
That's huge. And you know, I think it's so timely for what we're experiencing, right? And this all cards on the table, chaos and profound opportunity to return to a lot of these ancient wisdoms that haven't changed as we've gotten so smart and pursuing science and experts and research. We have forgotten about some things, and this is our time of remembering. So to the people that want to pick your brain apart, which there's so many different ways we could go, take them in today's climate, in the chaos, when we're talking, you know, viruses and, you know, immune systems and all these things. What are a couple tangible tools or action steps that you would suggest people look at integrating in their day-to-day lives to optimize health and immune system function?
Let me see if I can find it. I had an old post that actually talked about the top 10 ways to support your immune system.
I'll find it.
I got it right here. The number 10, I'll send this to you, was, if we go backwards from 10, the number 10 was actually to get a dog or a cat.
Good.
Because, right, their saliva, their germs act in your gut biome and your ecosystem as antidepressants and support your immune system. So you actually are more likely to stay healthy and not have a severe immune response to the infections that go around every year. So that's number 10.
germs are good for us. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That video that I did on the beauty of viruses actually got deleted after getting up to 500,000 people, which is kind of ironic.
Well, for
it was
those
actually, yeah,
that are listening, he's gonna share that in person, and jump into some of these things. I kind of thank them for deleting these things because it's just creating more fire that's spreading. Okay, so number 10 is get a pet.
10.
Yeah.
We'll go fast. 9 is meditation or prayer. 8 is sleep or rest. 7, movement or exercise. Boost your natural killer cells if you get at least 20 minutes of just walking a day, which natural killer cells are your initial line of defense against any type of germ that you don't want to have in high quantity in your body. Number 6 is to get outdoors. Number 5 is supplements or vitamins like vitamin D and A, C, E, zinc, selenium, your antioxidants. Number 4 is to eat or drink well, whatever that means for you. Number 3 is physical touch. Hugging, kissing are even better. It's the fastest way to support your immune system. Number 3 is to let a fever do its job to build your antibodies, because fevers can be too high and be dangerous, but almost always they're really helpful. And that's what your thymus uses to build your T cell defense and your memory T and B cell protection, so that when you do get sick, and that's you adapting to a germ so that you can remember it forever, that fever is what helps you remember it. So it's sort of like when you study for a test and you get no sleep, you have no idea what you just studied for the big test. When you're dealing with a germ and you're learning how to incorporate that into your body and your ecosystem, if you don't let the fever happen, you're not going to remember what to do when the germ comes around again. So you might get sick multiple times, which is possibly why there are those 1 in a million chances of reinfection that we see this year.
So if I'm a mom in your practice, right, or a mom that you interact with, and I say, so my kid has a fever, what do I do? Because we've been ingrained, right? Tylenol, Motrin, give them some, shut it down, give them something. What do you say? What's Dr. Campbell's advice in those instances?
Well, it depends how much someone wants a pill for a problem and how much they're willing to just like let it fly. So, and where their comfort level is with their children and how much they've been exposed to just letting these things go. So some people will let a fever get up to 103 to 105 degrees or 104. Depends on the age of the child, depends on what the parent is comfortable with. But if they start getting like seizures or convulsions or, drilling out their mouth or like neurologic changes, then it's probably appropriate to like quell the fever with some medicine or with some natural remedies or with some like an urgent care center of some sort. But many parents will let their kids go and they just hydrate their kids really well. They'll do things like wet sock treatment. They can Google like wet sock treatment, and that can help quell a fever. People will use belladonna as a homeopathic remedy for fevers as well. They'll do like ice baths and stuff like that. So there's a lot of sort of remedies to soothe a fever or to support the body adapting to a germ. But I'd say 99% of the time, fevers handle themselves. Now, if a child does not have healthy nutrition, if they're not taking a multivitamin or not having a well-rounded diet, then they might not have the antioxidants that quell inflammation. They're anti-inflammatory vitamins, like I said, vitamin A, C, E, zinc, selenium. Everyone knows about vitamin C, vitamin D. If they don't have a lot of that or not getting outside and moving, eating those things in fruits and vegetables. If they're eating a lot of carbs and a lot of fried food or bad oils, and they're just a lot of like meat, and they're not getting a lot of that kind of cooling effect from plants, they may not handle a fever very well. So if all they're having is like cheese sticks and, chicken nuggets like I did, it's not going to go so well.
Well, there's no one size fits all, right?
Exactly.
And there's different, like you're saying, there's different parenting styles. So I love this approach and the round table of approach that you offered. Ultimately, it sounds like we're very similar I love the quote, the doctor of the future is the patient, and the idea to empower parenting, right? To give them the option.
Yes.
End of the day, though, it's you and that kid, and you're in that moment. And I want people to feel equipped, which it sounds like you do too, and to operate from a place of trust that that system that came from two cells knows how to handle these things if it's supported well.
Exactly. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I really think that is the shift that we're seeing now, and it's going to implode medicine as we know it. Right. I don't remember if it was Zach Bush or someone else, but they were talking about, it's actually been talked about for millennia, like back to Socratic method and stuff like that. But it's like doctor as savior, which is like modern medicine where you need an acute savior to save your life when your arm gets cut off or you get in a car accident. Then the second, like these three models, the second one is doctor as teacher, which is docere, which is where doctor comes from, which is to teach, which is teaching the patient to be their own doctor, more or less. But it's like that transition stage to the patient is their own doctor and healer. So rather than like the patient just learning, the patient becomes their own doctor and the doctor becomes more of a guide, shaman, guru that just is there along the journey as like a coach more than an actual doctor. So like doctor could be a savior, doctor could be a teacher, but really we're at our best when the patient becomes empowered. And you grow from being the child who needs an adult doctor to save you to learning through puberty who you are, how your body talks to you, and your doctor is teaching you. And then you graduate college and you're a full-fledged adult, and you're now a patient who becomes an adult, takes care of themselves, makes their own decisions, can deal with their child's fever however they see fit. And your doctor is just almost like a friend or a coach who just gives you a little more education here and there and a little more nudge, a little more showing you of what you might need to reflect on. And that's where I try to get with all my patients. And it's a really magical journey to watch them transition. It's like helping them, grow up from a little baby natural health child to a full-fledged practitioner on their own.
And we're all like straddling a line, right, of what we learned in the world we grew up in, and then and it's a dance, and we step 2 steps back sometimes. So having supports and guides is wildly important. I don't know that we'll hit a time, who knows, where we don't need that, but it is nice having an objective set of eyes to see you when you can't see yourself. So all of this build up to take us to the number one. What was the number one? I stopped you at fever. What's the number one way, Dr. Bradley?
The number one way to build your immune system is to get sick.
Yes.
Very obvious, but you have to get sick in order to be healthy. The people who are like, I never get sick ever, like they're usually going so hard that then they crash 10 times harder with something really serious that they've been building up the whole time. But you have to give yourself enough space and grace to get sick. Without it, you can't build a healthy immune system, especially as a child. So you don't necessarily have to get sick every year as an adult, but when you're a child, if you don't let your child get sick, if you quench every fever, if you give an injection for every illness or an antibiotic for every bacterial infection, their immune system and their brain does not learn how to adapt to inflammation and change, which means they're mentally not going to be able to handle a lot or adapt to a lot in their lives as well. So I feel a lot of times the chronic stress that we deal with is because of the psychoneuroimmune system. And if our immune system doesn't know how to adapt, our nervous system and our psychology doesn't know how to adapt to stuff as well. And then we get a lot more anxiety, depression. We get a lot more people who are just easily stressed when if you toughen them up, not like an abusive, toxic masculinity type way, but if you toughen them up in like let them get sick once in a while and let them maybe have some hard experiences, let them go camping, don't like overly coddle. It's the balance between like helicoptering and coddling your kids too much and maybe like not caring at all in the toxic masculinity sense of the word and like not letting them feel. But that balance is extremely important and I think helps us build healthy immune systems and nervous systems.
Well, and I'm sure there's so much power in language, right? So when you say it's important to get sick at a time when the whole world's number one objective is to like, don't get sick. But it's what does sick mean? Like it's context. And when with our kids, like when they're coughing, they have diarrhea, they go through these things. Not my kids never have that, but when they don't think symptom, sick, death, right? Oh my
Yes.
gosh, we're going to die. They are, oh, I have this thing. My body's telling me I need to pay attention because it needs rest or nurtured, or it's building antibodies. Like I work with my 4-year-old saying, this is where the little army cells are working inside of you and they're cleaning house. We're getting rid of all the weak cells and it's building stuff up. And kids get that. They get that. And so when my kids get sick, they understand, hey, well, they'll lay on the floor and say, Mom, check me, adjust me. And then they understand that they're processing health.
Yes.
Can you imagine, visualize, create a visual with me? What does that world look like? If you and I wave a wand, right? And in this moment, we download this into the brains of humanity. What does that world look like? What would that shift be like?
Well, it's a shift from polarity and militarism and you versus me and human versus non-human, black versus white, Republican versus Democrat. It's a shift from binaryism, which is one of the biggest problems in our culture, to inclusivity, which is love, acceptance. It's remembering and just learning what I talked about in this Beauty of Virus video, that 52% of our DNA has been adapted and changed by viruses, and 8% of our DNA is viral, and that we're 10 times more germ than we are human. And there's a quadrillion viruses in every square meter of air, which means there's more viruses surrounding your head right now than there are stars in the entire universe, which means if they were bad for us, if germs were bad for us, we would be dead. We wouldn't even be here. So germs are amazing for us. They're great for us. We're more germ than we are human. And I think if we start to learn that most viruses, most germs, most sickness is actually an adaptation process, like an iPhone upgrade, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like you can avoid the upgrade for a little while, but eventually you're going to have to get back in the ecosystem and adapt and upgrade your system. So getting sick with a virus is reprogramming your DNA. It's like increasing to the new operating system. So whether that's the cold of the year, the flu of the year, whatever is going on, the vast majority of people in a civilization get that upgrade every year. Some will get sick. Some old iPhones won't make it with the new upgrade. Some look like they're going to make it, but they've been dropped in the toilet like a bajillion times. So even though they look healthy, they're not so healthy on the inside and they can't handle the new upgrade. But most every iPhone can handle the new upgrade. So I think that's like, if I could just download that into people's brains, that viruses and germs are extremely good for us, and what they're meant to do is to help us detoxify, cleanse, adapt, evolve, grow, change, and that without them, we could not adapt our internal ecosystem to the external ecosystem. We couldn't be a part of nature, and that nature is germs, and we need them to be a part of this world, and they're how we communicate to each other as well. And it shouldn't be this evil thing to get sick, or this horrible process. It should be like, oh, look at all these kids getting sick in the classroom at one time. They're all building their immune systems together. Isn't this delightful? This is so great. They're we're just helping our kids grow stronger and better. And even if they're not surrounded by germs, I saw some research that actually showed people who are like bubble boys. They're just in bubbles all the time for years. They will still go through phases that looks like they're getting sick with the germ, but their bodies are just cleansing, because part of the whole thing that Alex Zeck and all these people are talking about this year, Tom Cowan, is that exosome theory basically shows that one of the ways your body cleanses itself and the cells cleanse is by basically clearing itself with viruses, and basically cleansing, detoxifying these exosomes, which are little particles of germs that leave the cell with the debris, with the stuff that shouldn't be there. So a detoxification reaction is almost identical to a infection from most germs.
I feel like I'm going to need to replay through all of that to, because that's it. And I think we're going to cycle through what we're cycling through until a tipping point of us get that. All of that.
I agree.
And so I hope you play this record in as many different ways as you can with your voice. And it's why I'm so excited to have you and a wildly diverse group of people say what you just said in a different way, because we're all saying the same thing. You know, we all see the same potential. I do want to root everyone back at something that I feel like is a soul adjustment for anyone listening. So wherever you're at, I just want you to put your hands on your heart and close your eyes. You guys know me by now. I'm real big on this, but Dr. Bradley, can you say that part again about how many viruses around our head right now in comparison to stars? And guys, can you visualize this in real space? Can you say that part again for us?
Yeah, that there are over a quadrillion viruses in every square meter of air, which means if you hold your arms out above you and to the side and visualize that, there are more viruses in that space than there are stars in the entire universe. So you can imagine like looking up at the stars at night, just getting goosebumps. That's around you right now, supporting you, helping you breathe and adapt and be alive. I came across I got to download this too. I came across a great BBC article about the beauty of viruses from about 10 years ago. And they were talking about how everyone thinks about oxygen coming from trees, but that's actually not where the most oxygen on our planet comes from. Most of the oxygen comes from algae in the ocean. And what keeps the algae in the ocean growing is viruses, because bacteria would actually eat up most of the energy in the ocean every day if it were not for viruses called bacteriophages, which are specific viruses that eat bacteria. And if those bacteriophage viruses did not destroy and basically limit the growth of all this bacteria in the ocean, the algae would have no energy to survive. And since the viruses quell all this bacterial growth every day, the algae get immense amounts of energy and produce immense amounts of oxygen, like massive amounts more than all the rainforests in the entire planet. Like we're worried about the rainforests. We should be worried about keeping these viruses going in the ocean, because that's what we need. We need these viruses to keep us breathing. So not only are there more in this little space than there are stars in the entire universe, we need viruses to breathe. Like with the irony that we've been forcing ourselves not to breathe because we're scared of a virus, when viruses are what keeps us breathing, is a irony that is not left unheard.
And it does feel like a cosmic joke from time to time.
Yes.
Journey, right? And it almost feels like God is somewhat just spanking us and putting us in timeout and going, hey, can you play this out to see how ridiculous your current systems are and how they don't actually serve you, and that perhaps they do need to implode and adapt and restructure, and this experience will yield a higher frequency in us all. Oh, the possibilities, huh?
Oh, indeed.
We need viruses to breathe. And the stars, like, I mean, I know germs are good for that. Visual for me will be a good one to unschool, reschool, homeschool, whatever with my children. That's a good one among a full page of notes. Now, if people want to follow along with you and your fantastic social media, this guy's memes are on point at a whole new level. So tell them where they find you.
So the current Instagram right now is Dr. Bradley Campbell on Instagram. And then the website, which has links to all my other content, if I end up going elsewhere, is healthassurancemovement.org. It's not insurance, but assurance, how to be assured you're healthy. So healthassurancemovement.org, which is a nonprofit I made for free health education.
Love it. Love it. And that's the thing, is like these fellow health and freedom warriors that I feel like God is weaving paths together right now, are here, I think, as an Avengers sort of group to disrupt and resettle and help innovate the things that weren't working that well. So I'm grateful beyond words for your time, and
Likewise.
to dive into some of these rabbit holes and to hear about the little boy and the why behind this unfolding, right? Because we all do have that thing, or a series of things that send us into this trajectory. So guys, this is one of those episodes, I feel like I'm looking at my notes, there's so much gold in this. This one's worth listening to a few times. This one, to my homeschool mamas, I hope you play with your children, because these are things that the next generation, if we stitch these tools into their knowing and the fabric of the way they live life, we create a whole new world. And that's why these conversations mean the world to me. If either of us can support you in your journey, reach out to us, come to the Big Idea so you can see this guy and his wonderful dog and team. And we wish you well. Any closing words?
No, just tell people I love them all, and they always have the answers. So if they're trying to figure out what to do with their lives or with their health, just take some time to yourself, go sit alone for a long time in nature or alone by yourself, meditating, prayer, and know that for the most part, you have the answers within you.
That's it. That's it, friends. You heard it here. And until we have you here in real life. And if you want to go surfing behind a boat while you're here, let us know. We could make that happen. So we'll see you guys soon. Thank you for tuning in. Mwah! Well, what'd you think? Thank you so much for investing your time and your energy to share in the conversation on this episode of If They Knew. The whole vision was to invite some of my favorite storytellers, mentors, teachers, and guides that inspire me to live healthier, to live happier, to live more free, more authentically me. I hope that something they said, something they shared, opened up a little piece of you that had been there all along and just needed a little nudge to remember. If you have any feedback, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to post it in the comments or reach out to me directly. If you know somebody that you think would make us a good interviewee, send me your suggestions. You are the reason, you are the motivation for this podcast, for these conversations. If you really want to crank up the light in your health and life, be in Wichita, Kansas, and join us for the Big Idea on June 25th, 26th, and 27th. We're going to blow you away with speakers from all over the country who are going to elevate the game when it comes to what it means to live vibrantly alive. This is the community you've been looking for. Now, there's big work to be done. And if we want to see change in the world, we've got to start with ourselves. So I hope that this episode and the different things I share on social media and the events that we host help bring it all together. I love you. I appreciate you. I am so very grateful for this space and for you. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. I'll see you soon.